Hi everyone, I'm Tally, Director of Community Care Home Care at SCIU Healthcare, and I am sitting here today with your CarePartners bargaining team, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jody Verberg. I am the Community and Home Care Executive Board seat member and also a member of the bargaining team.
Hi, I'm Tammy Ledusser, and I am on your bargaining committee.
I'm Sabrina Vanderhoff, and I'm on your bargaining committee.
Gloria Turney, bargaining team.
Thanks guys. So what we're actually going to do today is go over the Memorandum of Settlement to give members an opportunity to understand some of the changes and some of the exciting gains that we made. So before I go and break through to the memorandum, I just wanted to give a little bit of a background information of what we've been doing in the last year. So you've probably seen all of our faces many times before, whether it's on ads or on Facebook or through these videos. But as most of you know, we've been doing the Stuck in the Past campaign during the bargaining to push your employer, CarePartners, to come to the table with a fair agreement. Over the course of the year, we've had quite a battle, and I'm sure these guys can tell you a little bit more about that. But we filed many unfair labor practices against your employer. We filed an interim agreement during the time your employer changed the terms and conditions of your contract, and we've also applied for a HILDA application. And that's to try to get you guys under the HILDA app so that at some point we can go to arbitration instead of doing traditional labor relations, which would lead to a strike vote at some point. So all of that we have been informing members about throughout the year, as well as videos, campaigns we've been doing with Don and Penny, going into the CarePartners facility, making our voices heard, not getting arrested at this point. But I think all of this really pushed your employer to come to the table last week on Saturday to try to get a deal, and that's what I'm going to go through today. I think it's really important to understand the climate that we're in when we got this deal. So as you know, your employer changed the terms and conditions of your employment January 10th, and this has had a devastating impact on members. Those changes included removing your weekend block. It included removing your indirect travel from whatever your rate was before to $14 an hour. It also included, changes to, where you're going in your geo areas and other points. So what we're going to do today is go through what we were able to get on Saturday and what you would be voting on. So just a clarification before I break it down, this is a ratification vote. So we are endorsing this collective agreement. We believe this is the best we can get during this climate and considering everything that's going on. We are asking members to vote yes for this agreement, and we do think that it is quite a historical win, especially for CarePartners. For those members who've been here a very long time, and I'm sure there are people sitting right next to me who've been here for a very long time, they know what bargaining was like, past years and some of the very little movement that we've made. That being said, before I break into the memorandum, does anybody here want to add anything about the process of bargaining and your experience with the bargaining process and Stuck in the Past campaign?
All right, just want to say bargaining was long and a bit tedious, but it was reassuring to know that the members had our back, and even though they were not at the table, they went through bargaining just as we did. They supported the Facebook Stuck in the Past. They were making posts that supported us, and we felt reassured that they had our backs all the way.
Great, Gloria. Anyone else want to add anything?
I'd also like to say this is my second time on the bargaining committee, and knowing what I do about how difficult it is to bargain with this employer, and knowing how it's literally like pulling blood from a stone, I'm really excited about this historical win that we've got. And it's been a long, hard battle, but we got through it with the support of everybody out there. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I'll go through the MOS, and we're also going to be doing a teletown hall on Monday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you do have questions, feel free to bring those questions during that time. So when you open up your email, you will be receiving a few documentations. The first one is the frequently asked questions and highlights. So what this is basically the major changes that have happened in the MOS and an easy to understand guide on how that'll impact you. The second document that you will receive will be the actual memorandum of settlement, and the changes that will happen in the collective agreement. I'm going to be going over both of these, but they're exactly the same in the sense of what the content is. It's just important that we go through it all so members understand some of those changes. So to begin with, this is going to be a 3-year term. However, we've already gone through the first year because the collective agreement did expire last year. So the term will be from April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2022. What you'll notice in the first page of the MOS is something called a wage reopener. So what this language means is basically during the course of the collective agreement, if this government decides to allocate more money to personal support workers, this language will allow us to reopen the wages and have that money allocated. So we won't have to go back into the bargaining process. So this protects us in case there's more money that comes through. Then what you'll notice is some lump sum payments. So in the frequently asked questions, I break it down a little bit more, but essentially there are going to be a couple lump sum payments. The first lump sum payment will happen with 0.5% over the last year. So every hour that you worked over the last year, you'll be getting 0.5% lump sum payment, and that will be in a separate deposit. Then you go into this year. So this year there's actually a couple things that are going to be happening. The first thing, which I think is the most important thing and quite a win for this bargaining team, is the wage grid. So what you'll notice in the highlight document is we've attached the Appendix A wage grid. And so as we've been talking about over the course of the year, it was super important for us to get our members on a wage grid that would allow the people at $16.50 to move up to the highest level to go to $19 and beyond, and the people who are at $19 to get wage increases. So I'm happy to say that we were successful in getting that. Before, your employer indicated that they would not put you on based on your seniority, but we were successful in getting that. So as an example, and I think this is a really good example, I'm going to use Jody. So Jody, you are stuck at $16.50 for years.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So now that she's going to be put on the wage grid as per her seniority, where are you going to go, just so I can understand and we can tell the members?
I will be at $17.90.
$17.90. So that's level 6. And that's for people who have 5,850 hours. So what we're asking members to do is look at where your seniority is, and you can plot yourself down. For the rest of the bargaining team who are at the $19 rate, they're actually going to be receiving a 0.7 wage increase this year. So just to reiterate, everybody's going to go on this new grid based on your seniority. So wherever you land, you will get an increase. If you are at $19 already, then what you're gonna get is a 0.7% wage increase. So that will take you up to this year to $19.13. And then for everybody at level 1 to 8, they're gonna get a 0.7 lump sum payment, and that's gonna come in the next couple of months. In addition to that, what you'll notice is there's actually another base wage increase that's going to happen in 2022. So again, in the highlight document, what you'll see is that for the $19 people, they're going to end up at $19.32. So this is a 32-cent increase, which will now get members who are stuck at $19 to move up to $19.32. And this is, these are steps that we're taking so that when we go back to the table in 2022, we're now fighting to get more wage increase. And why we're saying this is historic is because if you look at a lot of collective agreements, many of our PSWs are stuck at 19, and some of them maybe go up to 1919, but they're definitely not at 1932. So this is quite an achievement. The other thing that's really important to note is that we know that in your pay stubs, you'll see your base rate, and then you'll see the enhancement. You're no longer going to see that. This is all going to be one rate. So whatever your seniority is as per the wage grid, that will be your rate of pay. So the other thing that was changed during the January 10th forced terms was the indirect pay. So this was a really big deal for a lot of members. So currently, how it works in the collective agreement before your employer changed the terms is that if you, whatever your base rate was, you would be getting as an indirect rate. So that would be for travel, that would be for, meetings that you had to attend. January 10th, your employer changed that to $14. And this was a massive issue for the membership. And we are happy to say that we were successful in keeping it status quo for members. So if you were moved, actually all of you were moved from $15.44, whatever that was, to $14, you're going to be getting retro from January 10th until the point of ratification for that $1.44 that you lost out on. In addition to that, you're going to maintain your $15.44. If you're not at $15.44, you will still have an opportunity to continue climbing up. So I think all of you guys are at $15.44. So for these guys, they'll go back to $15.44. But for example, if you're a new PSW and you're only at $14.57 because that's your base rate, you'll still have an opportunity to get up to $15.44. For new hires that are coming in, they're going to be on a different indirect rate that'll take them from $14 to $15. So we were able to maintain and grandparent the people who are currently in, which is about 3,000 members. And in addition to that, we were still able to give people who are coming in the ability to get up to the $15. So even if you're in the Muskoka, Simcoe, and Windsor area, you will go up your grid as well to the 1563. We made sure to include that. Anything that I've missed out so far, guys?
No.
Okay, great. So that's for the indirect rate that we've managed to get back to status quo. Other changes. So what you'll notice is in the memorandum of settlement, it's kind of broken down a little bit more complicated because this is what it looks like, kind of the raw draft when we go through bargaining. So the next thing that you'll notice is that there is going to be a change to your benefits. Your employer currently contributes $70 to offset the cost of your benefits. That's going to be increased in 2021 to $75. There's also going to be an increase to your kilometers in 2021 from 37 cents to 38 cents. And I know these are very small changes, but these are still changes that equal a monetary gain for our members. And like I said, we are creating the building blocks to improving a better collective agreement next round of bargaining. Another question that has been changed, and I think it's really important to highlight, is that during the bargaining process, there's a negotiation that happens. We know that in January 10th, when your employer changed the terms of the agreement, what it meant for us is that now we have to bargain under those terms and try to reclaim what was lost. Unfortunately, this is the process that happens in labor relations. The union is always trying to go in to protect everything we've had, to not accept concessions. We made that clear at the very beginning, and although we managed to get almost everything we wanted, there was a bit of a give that we did have to do. And so this impacts mostly the Timmins and Quinte people when it comes to travel. So your travel is not going to be at the enhanced rate anymore. It's actually going to go based on the collective agreement. And so this will have a minor financial impact on some people, but it was for the better of everybody else, the other 3,000 people who were impacted by the changes. So that is an unfortunate thing, but I can assure you, and we've had these conversations as a team, that next round of bargaining, we're looking for, straight time, regular pay for your travel. So if you're traveling, you should get paid for all of that time. So that's going to be our next goal. So for the Timmins and Quinte people, I know this is a bit of a hit, but we have you in mind, and we are going to push, whether it's the government, whether it's CarePartners, or whether it's internally, to push to ensure that you get better travel in the next round of bargaining. Does anybody kind of want to talk a little bit about that or add to anything? All right, so the other thing that you'll notice that's in the memorandum of settlement and not in the highlighted document is there's going to be some changes to Article 12, which is just for layoff and recall. So this is in the extreme example where CarePartners loses some clients, and now we are in a position where we have to go through layoff and recall. We don't anticipate that that's going to happen anytime soon. We are very clear and very confident that you guys are in demand like crazy and that there's going to be expansions happening. So I wouldn't really put too much focus on this, but there is a change in terms of what triggers the layoff. But we did manage to keep your right to choose whether you decide to accept a layoff or to accept a transfer. And that is the most important thing in Article 12. So that way, if there is a layoff and your employer is requiring you to travel further away to do clients, you have a choice whether that's something you want to accept or you want to accept the layoff. The next thing that will be in the memorandum of settlement that's not in the frequently asked questions, because this is more about specific things, is Article 1302, which is union position. So this is great for a couple of us, especially Gloria and Jody, who are executive board members. But basically what this allows is for the union to take off members for about 2 years. So if Tammy or Sabrina ever want to, do some union training and we need to take them off for a year or so, we now have this language in the collective agreement that allows us to do that. So there's going to be a bit of language change. It's not going to impact everybody, but it has an overall, change to the collective agreement. So the other change that happened was your statutory holiday change. So as you know, in the collective agreement that expired in 2019, you had the option to choose your blocks of time for the statutory holidays. When your employer changed the terms January 10th, they changed that as well. But our focus was to get those weekend blocks because we understood that that would impact a lot more members a lot more frequently. So unfortunately, you'll be a little bit more available on the statutory days, and that is something that we're going to work on in the future. But this was one of those exchanges that we had to do. The good news, though, is we managed to keep Article G, which is another article your employer wanted to take away, allowing the senior staff to have the first choice over the junior staff. So we're successful in keeping that. So for those people who've been here for a long time, you shouldn't notice too much of a difference when it comes to your statutory holiday. The next thing you'll notice in the memorandum of settlement is there's some changes to Article 14, and this is workplace safety and insurance and injury. So what these changes do is really reflect what the workplace insurance and health and safety really has under their act. So you'll see those changes in bold, and anything that's been crossed out has been removed. But this should not have a dramatic impact on most people. It will probably impact the health and safety team to try to improve the conditions that you guys face. So take a look at that, and of course, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. But like I said, it's just minor language change that won't have a dramatic impact on most people. The one thing that I think I do want to highlight in Article 14 is 1406, which is about infectious disease, especially what's going on now. It's really important when it comes to winter and the flu and all these viruses happening, that you guys, as people going into these clients' houses, personal support workers, always engaging physically with people, that you are aware of what diseases that these clients have. So the language we've been able to get is that your employer will notify you prior to your first visit with a client of what those diseases are, those infectious diseases, so that you're prepared and you know how to set yourself up there. The next change that you'll see is there's some minor changes to the labor management team to try to make it more efficient for us, because we're such a large group of people and we're all over the province. We've changed some language to try to make it a little bit more efficient and accommodating for everyone. The next changes that you'll see is the government mandate position. So throughout the course of bargaining, your employer maintained that they wanted to remove the government mandate position. So just so I get a clear understanding, are you guys all covered under the government mandate?
No.
Okay, so you two, the three of you are, and Tammy isn't. So for the three of them, what that means is that they have a certain amount of guaranteed hours that they're entitled to, whether they work them or not. Your employer wanted to remove that, and they held on to that till the very end. Actually, until they changed the terms and conditions on January 10th, they removed that. So we're happy that that's actually still in place, that your government mandate positions are protected. The only difference that you'll notice in the language, and I have it again written in the highlights document, is that, for example, and I'm going to use Gloria here, if Gloria decides she's retiring or leaving CarePartners, that her position won't be posted as a government mandate, but it'll be posted as whether it was a part-time or full-time position instead. And this is very common. We actually see this happening a lot in this sector, that these positions are being removed through attrition and overtime. So you won't see a major impact on anybody right now, but over the course of the years, as more and more people retire and these positions are removed, it will be replaced with either part-time or full-time. So that's what you'll notice in here. So the next article that I think is important is general availability, so Article 1901. That's actually where the government mandate positions are. And then you'll see it's broken down again to once we create those full-time positions, how will that be posted? And that falls under Article 18, the posting language. So just so you know, the weekend block is also under Article 19 in the MOS, so you can actually see it not only in the availability form, but you can see it here where at first it was removed, but now it's back on, which is your weekend block and the times that you get to choose. So just in case anyone gets nervous, it is in the collective agreement. We have to make sure your employer abides by those new changes once it does get ratified. So the next the next change actually comes for the geo areas. And I know this is a super important part for a lot of people. During the course of bargaining, and it won't be surprising to you, your employer tried to change your geo areas several times. Whether it was the amount of time that you can travel between clients or what area you can go to, they wanted to expand it so that they can have the ability to put you at any client, and we push back as a team saying that any change in geo areas should come at an increase, especially if it causes members to have to travel more. So what we were able to agree on is a minor change that should actually benefit members more than anything. So currently in your collective agreement, under Article 19, more specifically, what you'll see is that your employer right now, or rather in your old term, was allowed to put you in an adjacent geo area. So that means, as you know, there's the geo area and there are boundaries. So if you have a client in an adjacent area, you are allowed to go pick up that client. What's going to happen now is that they're allowed to put you to go see any client outside of your geographic area. So still following the rules. So you're supposed to get clients in your geo area first. If they have clients in other geo areas that they can't bill with the people who are assigned to those geo areas and the junior people assigned to those geo areas, then they can put you to clients outside of your geo area. But it has to be within your time. So it doesn't matter anymore if there's a boundary here and a boundary there and you can only go to one client. As long as it's within the time frame outlined in the collective agreement, they can give you those clients. So you shouldn't see any difference in your traveling because they still have to abide by those rules, and they still have to abide by the rules of putting people or receiving clients to the people within the geo areas first, and then the junior, and then provide it to the senior. So there's still a lot of rules in place. So if you're finding that your employer is just throwing you clients all over the place and you're traveling more than the timeline outlined, you need to contact your steward and let them know so that we can look into it, because there are a lot of rules in the collective agreement that still apply when it comes to geo areas. But this should at least allow you to pick clients that might have been closer to you, but not in your adjacent geo area. So we know that happens a lot, that there's a border, a fabricated border. You can't go see that client across the street because it's not part of your adjacent area. However, now, if it's part of your time slot, you can go see that client. When it comes to geo areas, there is also one other small change. So we were successful actually in keeping your times. I think it's important though for members to know what your employer wanted to change the times to. So in the memorandum of settlement, you'll see, for example, they wanted to change the region of Peel to 45 minutes. The Brock, Halton, that area, they wanted to change from 25 minutes to 45 minutes. We were successful in maintaining it. The only difference comes in the region of Peel that went from 15 minutes to 25 minutes, but that was, we felt, accurately reflected the travel time that already happens in the region of Peel. So just to reiterate, because I think it's very important, so for example, if Sabrina has a client that's across the street that she normally wouldn't be able to go because that was considered, not the adjacent area, if it's still within, the time frame, what time frame?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, she can now go across the street and see that client because that's not, outside of the 30-minute frame. So the last, some of the other last points is there is a change to the same day coverage. So we know that there is some difficulty when it comes to, you've provided your employer with a time slot of availability, and the expectation is that your employer fills your time slot with clients. We know that doesn't happen a lot, and sometimes you're doing heavy clients during the morning, and then you have this gap, and then maybe you have a couple clients afterwards. So with that, you currently have language in the collective agreement that's supposed to help with some of that same day coverage, and that's Article 1909. However, there is going to be a change which will require you, if you are available, within your availability, to contact the employer, your manager, within an hour of them contacting you. But I just want to emphasize again that there are rules when it comes to same day coverage, that your employer still has obligations to ensure that people who are available during that time are put in during that time. So it's our job to push back on your employer, to push back on the schedulers to make sure that they're following the rules in the collective agreement, and as well as educating our membership about those rules in the collective agreement. So that's the first, that's just the change that will happen for same day coverage. The other change that you'll notice is to bereavement leave. We were successful in adding a couple different languages. The first is that you'll have an extension of time for certain bereavement, including for special services. So if you do have to go outside of the country to deal with a loss, that will happen as well. In addition, common law spouse has now been added. It wouldn't surprise us if there are members who got pushback from their employer during bereavement leave, which is unfortunate, but now we have some language to clearly outline who would be covered under that bereavement leave. There is a couple other language changes that comes to the appendix, nothing that would be major other than, like I said, the Timmins and Quinty people that I've already addressed. And then the last item that I did want to talk about is the T2200. So there are going to be some changes. You'll see that there's a crossed out part in number 1 that won't be taken into consideration anymore. However, what we did manage to get is language that says the employer will provide employees with 2200 forms upon request. We know that probably most of you need 2200 forms, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're telling members to do is connect with your stewards, and we're gonna put massive requests in for everybody to get these T2200s, because we know how important it is for you when you do your taxes, especially because you're traveling all the time. Is there anything else that I've missed that you guys wanted to add in terms of some of it?
Just for the T2200, from payroll, they've already sent you a link that you can go through the email system to apply for your T2200. So please utilize that because it makes better sense. Because remember, for privacy, even though we're your stewards and we can request them, they might want to ask you to do it yourself. So everybody should have received the emails from Salaries that says for T2200, make your request here.
Great. Okay, so those are all the major changes that are happening in this round of bargaining. You'll see that all reflected, like I said, in the actual memorandum of settlement. So this will show you all of the changes that we've been working on, some of the counters that we've had to deal with. And then in the frequently asked questions and highlights, it'll be more specific to everybody and some of the major changes. As well, we also have basic CA changes. So if you do have questions about, what does it mean to see something that says withdrawn proposal, or what does it mean when you see something crossed out, we've outlined that as well. So before we sign off, I did just again want to emphasize that there are a lot of changes, but there are a lot of really good changes. Overall, we can't even tell you what the percentage increase is because, like I said, for example, with Jody, she's moving up significantly in the wage, like a whole chunk of members are. We're looking at about 1,200 members at least who were stuck at that $16.50 rate, who are now going to be able to get an appropriate rate based on all the hours they've already done. In addition to that, the $19 people will now be at $19.32, which is a lot higher than most of our collective agreements out there. In 2022, we are going to be at the table again, fighting for $20 an hour, full-time travel, everything that you guys wanted. But overall, we believe this is a success. Any other last comments before we finish?
You might want to determine the difference between HSW and PSW.
Oh, yeah.
HSWs are making $16.50 as well.
Right.
Right?
Okay, so the one other thing that Jody just brought to my attention is to make sure that you understand in the wage grid your role. So we know that we have different classifications. We have personal support workers, especially PA2. So they'll be going under starting from level 3, which most of you have already seen that $17 change. But home support workers are also going to get an increase. Those who started at $16.50 will eventually get up to $16.90. But then again, they'll also receive the 1% base wage increase for all the members that happened to be in this collective agreement. Any final words before we sign off?
Say yes.
Just want to say it was a long year that we went through, lots of rounds of bargaining. We came away with what we think is the best that we can get now. But history shows that our union never gives up. Sweet 16 and the announcement was all because of your union. So this is what CarePartners is willing to give now, but the fight is not finished.
No.
It's just that to move this along and so that people can relax, get back to work, we have to accept to move on, but it's not done.
I'd just like to say that even though we have to move on, but we still have to keep fighting. We still have to keep people aware of what PSWs do, and we have to keep the political aspect going, and we have to keep just fighting for fairness for all PSWs.
Yeah, exactly. Sabrina, any last words? Good. Jody?
No, I'm good.
Exactly. Okay, thanks everybody. That is the summary of the MOS, and we hope that
One last thing, please,
sure.
sorry.
That's okay.
Please remember, work first, grieve later.
Yes, exactly.
Please do not get yourselves into any more trouble than is necessary. There are ways to fight and to get back what we have lost if you think you have lost anything. So for those people who, for this weekend, that they have changed your blocks and you're working outside of those, please, just for now, work first, we'll grieve later.
Exactly. Great point, Gloria. We have such a strong team here to answer any of your questions. So like I said, this is the summary of the MOS. We will have the teletown hall on that Monday at 7 o'clock if you do have questions about it. But at the end of the day, this is a victory. We finally have a grid where people move up, and we're aiming for the next couple of years. So keep up the good fight, everybody. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Solidarity.
Solidarity.